Good morning, friends and fellow traders. This is Doug Campbell with Right Way Options, and this is the morning market prep video for April 10th, 2024. Well, yesterday we had quite the volatility. I had suggested in the morning prep to watch for a possible whipsaw. I didn't know it was going to be so extreme, but then we whipsawed once again to close the day nearly flat. So what does all that mean? Let's take a look at what happened overnight. Well, doggone it. We had Asian markets struggled a little bit last night, kind of mixed, mostly lower, with the Nikkei falling, South Korea falling, Shanghai down just a little bit. But we saw Hong Kong rising substantially, up 1.85%, which is kind of that tech-heavy sector there in Hong Kong, and Australia was up. The problem was Japan's corporate inflation went up again for the third consecutive month in a row. New Zealand held their rates flat at 5.5%. So a little bit of volatility there. If we take a look at European markets this morning, European markets are showing some decidedly bullish price action here, trying to push up ahead of the U.S. inflation data, seemingly suggesting that they believe the inflation data is not going to be so bad. We'll wait and see if they're right or wrong. And here in the U.S., we also have a little bit of bullishness. We've got the diamonds trying to push up here this morning. S&P 500 futures are flat, and NASDAQ futures are just slightly lower this morning. So a little mix and a little bit of uncertainty. If we take a look at oil this morning, oil yesterday it pulled back nicely and it relieved some of that pressure. But oil this morning is up just slightly, up 22 cents. Brent crude is up 22 cents, and natural gas is up half a penny. We have gold, silver, copper, platinum, and palladium all higher this morning. We're seeing steel prices continuing to rise as this uncertainty about what these numbers might do and the fluctuation in currencies that we might see. So keep a close eye on that. And then we have cryptos down just a little bit this morning. Obviously, Bitcoin had kind of a rough day yesterday, dropping pretty substantially, but only down about $130 a coin this morning. So what does all that mean for today? Well, how about we settle in? Let's buckle up. Let's get ready for the Wednesday edition of the Morning Market Prep video. Good morning once again, everyone, and thank you so much for being here. I very much appreciate it. Let's take a look at these charts and see if we can gain a little bit of information about how we might want to approach the market for today. And remember, we want to look at these charts without bias. We want to see what the bulls might do, what the bears might do. And this could be really important for today, and it all depends on how we react to the data. So first off, let's take a look at what we've got going here. No big surprise that we've been kind of stuck in this range. Yesterday, we went up about 80 points and then reversed and fell 300 points real quick, and then spent the whole afternoon grinding back up, trying to suggest that there is no problem here in the market. Despite the fact that our bond yields continue to hold in there steady and higher, the bond market is definitely disagreeing with the stock market at the moment. I don't know. We'll just have to wait and see who is right here in just a little bit when we get the CPI report this morning. So if the bulls find inspiration here today, well, remember the first area we need to breach, we need to break back through that area. See how we can connect this all of these candles here together, and of course that big black candle in there giving us that ugly warning here in the market. And of course we have this downtrend. So I would look for that first step, and certainly easy to believe on that CPI number if the number is bullish and what the market wants to see, that we could break through this area really easy. Then we're going to have to push right up and see if we can break through this area of the chart. And I also think that's a pretty good probability. If we get a good bullish number out of the CPI, we could push right up through that area pretty easily. After that, then we're going to have to stretch on through, and we're going to have to break this resistance and this little resistance in the chart, and then we're in that situation where we have to get back above that evening star pattern and push on up to see if we can retest those highs, this double top, and then possibly blue sky highs above. Now, if the bears were to find inspiration, well, we saw yesterday just how quickly we could fall to this area of price support. So that's where I'm going to suggest would be the first area of defense for the bulls. If the bears were engaged by the number today, a drop into here would seem relatively likely. And if we were to break this area of support, well, you can see it can get really ugly really fast here in this chart. Now, we do have some little areas down here where we could test some tiny areas of price support in here, but then that next bigger area of price support would be all the way down here, and that would get a little bit painful, and we would certainly see some fear rising in the market. Now, after that, well, the really big area of support comes all the way down to here. And I know anybody that's a bull is saying, no, that can't happen. Well, we'll see, depending on how these numbers come out. I think anything is possible. And here's the other scenario that I want to play out. We could get this number, and it may end up being a no news event, meaning that we could continue to chop sideways. And the reason that would be the case is, remember, this afternoon we have an FOMC minutes coming out. Depending on how this number on the CPI comes out, could be really important for everyone to see what the FOMC is thinking. And then, of course, we have the beginning of earnings on Friday with a PPI number in between. So it is possible we could get this number and we don't get much of a reaction at all and just stay stuck in this range. So it really is going to matter how we react to those data points this morning. Could be pretty interesting day of volatility. If we take a look at our SPY real quick, well, SPY also had a pretty strong drop yesterday after trying to push higher. You can see if the bulls find inspiration today, we need to break out of this area up here, push through that little resistance area right there and up through that little tiny downtrend. Then we're looking at this area above, just a little tiny resistance in there, and then we're looking at retesting the all-time highs and possibly blue sky above that. If the bears were to find inspiration today, well, we do have a little teeny tiny support area. If I come right across here, we got a little support area right through there. If we push down, we might catch in there, but you can see on yesterday how quickly we could drop right into this area of price support, and that would be certainly a possibility if the bears are inspired by that data this morning. Beyond that point, we're starting to drop into areas down in here, and beyond that, it gets pretty painful. We could drop fairly hard, dropping into this area of price support in the chart. So just kind of watch that closely. And then our QQQ also got this little downtrend in here that we've got to worry about. If we can find that bullish inspiration today, we're going to have to break through this resistance. We've got a lot of candle action right in there, that right against that area. We'll need to break that, and we'll need to break that downtrend, and then we've got the next level just right above it. So we've kind of got a little bit of a triple whammy of resistance that we're going to have to pop through. Now the data today could certainly do that pretty easily if that data comes in to inspire the bulls. So watch that carefully for some big point moves. Past that point, we're probably looking at an opportunity that we're going to stretch up here, test those all-time highs, and then blue sky above that. If the bears were to find inspiration, well, we saw that move yesterday. I think we could probably push down into here first, trying to test that little level of price support in there, and then probably looking at that low of yesterday and then falling through there. I think we have that chance. We're coming back into these lows to test the bottom of that big black candle and the bigger support down in here on the QQQ. Breaking down below there, it gets pretty ugly, and we could see some serious pain starting to drop through some of these levels if that were to occur. I'm not suggesting that's going to be the case. And as a matter of fact, like I said, we could end up seeing more sideways chop in these indexes. Let's take a look at the Russell. IWM also pushed back up yesterday after some selling, and we're sneaking out from underneath that downtrend here, so that's bullish for IWM. We're still trying to see that rotation and that squeeze here in this area. So if those bulls find inspiration today, I would look for a pop of that big candle right in here and pushing us right back up next to this big level of price resistance. And I'll pull this back again and show you just how big an area this is. This is a very big area of price resistance. Not quite a year's worth of resistance in there, but a pretty substantial area. And we've tried to break through there before, haven't been able to do it. And if we can get back above this area here, then we do, whoops, darn it. Then we're going to have to deal with this morning star pattern, evening star pattern right here, and that resistance across that area in the chart. We'll have to deal with that and break through up in here. If we can break through and get back above this area and hold, then we have a major change that could be occurring here in the Russell. Certainly a possibility on this data. Now, if the bears were to find inspiration here today, then a push back down to maybe test some of these levels right in here, test that support, pushing down. If that were to fail, then I think we're coming down to test these lower levels, and beyond that, you can see these support levels in the chart. And we could actually move pretty quickly if the news is bearish for the day. Once again, I could not rule out the possibility for just more chop as we wait, depending on how that data comes out. If it comes out as kind of, well, in the middle of the road, everyone will be waiting for the PPI number, and then, of course, the beginning of earnings maybe to find that bullish or bearish inspiration in the market. Let's take a look at our VIX here real quick. Our VIX started up yesterday. We were pretty strong yesterday at one point, pushing up here on that failure. So it gave us those levels that we want to be paying attention to. First off, we have some support right through here in the chart, and if you remember, we've got this little upside trend that we broke. We broke this downtrend, and right now we're trying to hold this upside trend along support. So if the bulls find inspiration today, what we need to see is we need to see this upside trend broken and that support broken, coming back down toward this area here of the chart to see if we can break down through that little upside trend again. If the bears, however, find inspiration, well, we got a nice clue yesterday of where we could go pretty quickly, and that would be up here to test these highs in that area, breaking back through that price resistance there. And then we start looking for some real pain maybe coming in on the fear side of the market, and we would start looking at areas of the chart up in here, and it gets ugly past that point. If so, you choose. I think anything is possible here today. If we take a look at our T20s, T2122 ended up moving up just a little tiny bit yesterday and then hooking over at the end of the day. So we're showing that little bit of a concern. Remember, hockey sticks in the air would normally suggest we could see some pullback in that chart, but with the data that we have today, I don't know that you can take much weight in that because everything will be based on the data. If the bulls find inspiration, we certainly have upside opportunity here in T2122. And if the bears find inspiration, well, we can see how painful that could become pretty quickly if the bears were to be inspired today. So look for some big potential point moves if depending on how those data points come out. If we take a look at our T2108, T2108 flat here on the day, percentage of stocks above the 40-day, didn't really do any improving. We ran into some price resistance, but I don't see this as horribly bearish in any way, shape, or form. If the data is good today, we could zoom back up through there pretty easily today. If the bears were to find inspiration, the place that I would be looking for is a break of that 50% area and some of this support. And when we start breaking down through there, we're going to feel maybe a little bit of concern in the market and a little bit of pressure. Now, when we look at T2107, T2107 also came in flat yesterday. Wasn't quite able to break back up through that trend. But again, I don't see anything bearish here particularly. We're holding on to some support into that in that chart. So nothing terrible here, and a good bullish number today could pop us back up, retesting some of these highs. Now you will want to keep in mind we're getting very, very elevated here in our T2107. According to history, we get up in this area and we typically see a pullback coming. So if those bears were to be inspired today, we could really see this starting to crack down, testing support levels, and you could see where we could have a little fear come up in the market if that were the case. If we take a look at T2101, T2101, the absolute breadth of the market, even with that volatility that we saw yesterday and that climb back up, we saw breadth declining here just a little bit yesterday. We just don't see, even with that big price move that we had here in the market, breadth, it was still weak overall in the market. So today could be really important on how we react to those data points. Speaking of those data points, let's take a look at them right now and what we have to expect today. First off, this morning, we're going to get those mortgage applications. Be keeping an eye on that. This morning, we've got a CPI number. Obviously, it's what we've been waiting for and talking about all week. Consensus is suggesting that the month-over-month declines to 0.3 and the year-over-year increases to 3.5. We're seeing expectations ex food and energy month-over-month coming in at 0.3, a decline of 1/10, and they're saying ex food and energy year-over-year will decline 3.7. So watch that carefully. These numbers will be really, really important for us to be paying attention to and expect some volatility around that number. After that, we've got Bauman speaking. We've got wholesale inventories, and they're looking at wholesale inventories to come in at a 0.5 up from a negative 0.3. We're looking at a petroleum status number that could be very important today because, as we know, one of the major calculations into inflation is the cost of energy, and certainly that has been on the rise here. So we'll want to see if we can get supply builds or supply declines. That could be very important to oil prices today. We've got a bond auction in here. We've got Goolsbee speaking, a 10-year note auction, and then the FOMC minutes. Now, normally I would say FOMC minutes, maybe a non-event. We tend to get some volatility every time we get that report, but we've heard so much Fed talk here recently. We should have a pretty good idea where the Fed stands, at least at this point, but we could get a reaction depending on how this number comes in today. Everyone could be keenly interested to see what the last meeting looked like here, and so expect some more volatility this afternoon on that FOMC minutes. We've got Treasury statement then after that. And then tomorrow, we're going to be jumping right into our problematic jobs report that continues to be hot. And we'll want to watch that carefully, and along with a PPI number. And remember, the PPI number was the one that really kind of threw a monkey wrench into things last time, because as we see energy prices and commodity prices and things like that going up, that really feeds all those input costs, go right into those producer prices. So we'll want to watch that number on Thursday as well. So keep an eye on that. We've got more Fed speak in there as well. So that's going to be critical. And then, of course, Friday, we start some of the big bank reports. So a lot of uncertainty still here for the rest of the week for us to deal with. Let's take a look at our earnings calendar for today. And there's really only one notable earnings today, and they reported well this morning. Delta Airlines reporting better than expected, and they are pushing up here this morning, so we may get a little bit of a key boost on that. As a matter of fact, Dow futures have pushed on higher since that number's come out here this morning, but that really is the only notable here for today, and it's already happened. So again, it's going to be down to how we react to that CPI number, and well, anything is possible. Now, that being said, let's take a look at some stocks that could be setting up. And before we do that, guys, if you could just really quickly help me out, click that subscribe button on YouTube, and also click the bell icon when it pops up so you'll be notified every time I post a video. Also, if you could do me that favor, if you could click that thumbs up button, leave a brief comment, that helps the channel to grow. Remember, even an emoji counts, and it really is helpful for the effort of putting these videos out. Just that small comment helps that algorithm say people are engaging with the video, and then they show these videos to more folks then. And just a huge shout out, someone reported to me yesterday that they're sharing these videos out on their social media feed. Thank you so much. I truly appreciate that. And for those of you that continue to support the channel through the Buy Me a Coffee link, you guys are awesome. Thank you very much. Let's take a look at some of these stocks setting up. Remember, guys, these are not recommendations to buy or sell any security. You've got to do your own due diligence. Be very careful here in the market. And remember that today, anything is possible. So plan your risk very carefully, and make sure you're following your guidance, your risk rules. Never ever blindly follow anyone else's trade idea. Well, I've got to talk a little bit about the dollar here. We've got some currency fluctuations that could really affect us, with Japan's yen falling so much, and they're talking about raising their rates again to try and help prevent that, which strengthens the yen, and then that in turn could weaken the dollar. We also have this potential imbalance that could be being created between Europe and the United States. Europe is looking at cutting rates. The United States is maybe looking at holding rates, and that creates more imbalance, and that can create some volatility in the US dollar. So keep an eye on this. This could be really critical to those commodities that have been running to the upside. And we saw a couple of banks like JP Morgan and Bank of America suggesting, boy, hold on to commodities right now. Which is really kind of surprising considering where they are. My goodness, gold really strong. Right now this morning, gold is at $2,365 an ounce. Really showing strength and continuing to hold up here. So watch that carefully. If we see those that dollar start to weaken, Well, look for those gold and silver prices to continue to rise if that were to occur. Silver gapping up this morning, finding all-time high resistance here. And now pulling back here in the pre-market. So keep an eye on that. We're hitting all-time highs in silver or very, very close to it. We'll want to be watching that. I continue to expect these to rest or pull back. But right now, with all that uncertainty that we see in the market, that fear trade has got them moving to the upside. Now, let's take a look at things in copper. My goodness, copper really strong. Take a look at FCX, looking really good. This is one of the best of the breed in the copper industry right now, and we're pushing all-time highs here in copper. Oh, that's not true. We're pushing multi-year highs. We still have some higher highs here that all-time highs are going to be up here, and we may just see that stock after potentially a little bit of rest in here stretch right on higher to test those levels, and that's up there quite a bit more. So keep an eye on that. We know global supplies on copper are very, very low because of the EV industry. And if we take a look, SCCO, there's a lot of copper plays out there, really strong, and I would keep a close eye on them. I also would suggest you keep a close eye on some of these steel stocks. MT has been moving up in this little upside trend, testing some resistance up in here now, and that possibility of a multi-month breakout up here. And if you kind of squint your eyes on a longer term basis, you can see that possibility that we might be forming a bit of an inverted pattern in here on that. So if that pushes on through, watch carefully for that upside opportunity. Now, if we look at some others in here, CLF, Cleveland Cliffs, tried to break through this resistance up here, got a little bit of a pullback, little teeny tiny pop and pullback yesterday, and this morning we're looking, this was yesterday's candle, pulling back here. Let's watch that carefully. Any rest or consolidation in here that holds that upside trend, I would be watching for that next opportunity for that to push on higher. So watch that carefully. A lot of strength here in these steel stocks, including stuff like Steel Dynamics. Steel Dynamics showing a very bullish chart setup here, nice and strong. That opportunity to move on up. Take a look at Palladium. Palladium's been zooming the last couple of days up here. We're going to test some recent resistance in that chart, but we're continuing to see those precious metals and commodity type stocks moving strongly to the upside. Now, another place that you might want to look, take a look at Hormel. Hormel breaking through resistance. Remember, these are food prices, and we're seeing those come up out of this bottom, and Hormel starting to push on up. This could also be a very critical place and critical numbers for these inflation gauges. So watch that carefully in here. Hormel trying to move up, and Tyson doing the same thing, been moving up, testing some resistance areas, possibly a bottoming pattern coming in here on some of those food related items in here. You guys know I've been talking about Mosaic as a potential here. Mosaic has been coming up. There's that little price alert that I had in there, and that possibility that this could stretch on up and test this downtrend here in the chart. Ag related, food related products here. Keep an eye on that. I've talked about CF Industries. Now, CF had a hard pullback here earlier this week, finding some support in there. Keep a close eye on that. I don't know what we're going to get out of this. Remember, management of these companies is really, really important, and CF is running into some trouble here. So watch that. But how about Archer Daniels? Archer Daniels holding in a very bullish pattern here, and that opportunity that could stretch on up and fill this gap pretty quickly. Notice we're breaking that downtrend. Pretty important moves in some of these food and ag related companies, so watch them closely. Let's take a look at the financials here really quick. Our financials have been showing us just a little tiny fade as we head into those big bank earnings reports that will begin on Friday. And this concern that we're seeing with the bond yields going up, that's putting pressure on these financials. Today could be really critical in a number, whether we're going to see those financials break back through this little downtrend in here and push up, or if we see those financials feel that pinch, because we would likely see, if we get bearish news on CPI, we would likely see those bond yields expand, go higher, and that creates more pressure on the financials. So I think it's worth keeping an eye on it. I would still suggest at this point this is a very bullish pattern. We're wedging here, but if we can get any kind of number in here that decreases those bond yields, then we could certainly see XLF break out there to the upside. I'd be a little bit more careful with KRE, the regional banks. We've got more problems in here than you can shake a stick at with all of the commercial real estate issues and things that we have creeping up. And of course, that situation in China is not getting better on their real estate. And unfortunately, a lot of our regional banks hold some of the debt of some of these companies that are on the brink of folding up. Country Garden, one of their biggest developers beyond Evergrande, is now in a roll-up court battle in Hong Kong to start liquidating. So watch those things carefully here as this progresses in those regional banks. Other places in there, I've been mentioning, AMD, to watch that carefully as a possible short. We still have this downtrend here in the chart that we're watching, and we're kind of just consolidating this over in the trend. We've got a really strong support level in here. Once again, this could be very, very important based on how the market reacts today, whether this will pop out of here and begin that rally back to the upside, or it could quickly swing to a failure and move pretty strongly to the downside. So watch carefully on AMD for that possibility. And Apple also continuing to struggle here, moving out here, consolidating over to its trend as you downtrend here in the chart, right where you would expect to see a failure if we're going to fail. We do have some price support down in here, but watch that closely. Now, when you look at other big techs out there, NVIDIA had a little bit of trouble yesterday, sold off a little bit. You can see breaking down through a little bit of price support in here, but we came back up at the end of the day, raising a little bit of uncertainty in here whether this is going to continue on down or if it's going to hold this little area of price support by bouncing right back up. I would keep an eye on that. That could be critical here today as well. NVIDIA carries a lot of weight in the indexes, so watch that close. But there are those out there like Google showing lots of strength to the upside. Meta is not wavering at all, continuing to stretch to the upside, looking very, very strong there in Meta. So there is a mix of things in here to be paying attention to when it comes to those big techs. And remember, they dominate all three, the diamonds, the SPY, and the QQQ indexes. If they start to show any weakness, it's going to be difficult for those indexes to continue to move to the upside. So with that, everyone, I want to wish you all a fantastic day. Be very, very careful this morning. Remember, we're going to get this reaction before the market opens. Anything is possible. Your guess is as good as mine. Make sure you have a plan to protect yourself. Make sure you're thinking very carefully about what comes next in the market, meaning like the FOMC minutes, and then the PPI, and then of course the big bank reports. Figure out how you can protect your capital, make some money on it. Be very, very very cautious as we try to get through these numbers the next few days, because boy, we could see a lot of bullishness, bearishness, and I wouldn't rule out staleness. I wouldn't rule out a big whipsaws. Big point whipsaws could be possible. So just kind of keep that in mind. Y'all take care, be safe, and I'll see you right back here bright and early Thursday morning. Thank you much, everyone.